All right, today we're digging into the world of one of the planet's most fascinating and frankly secretive rulers, the Sultan of Brunei. We're talking about a story that's just dripping with unbelievable wealth, total power, and, well, a ton of contradictions.
So let's just start with a number. 7,000. What do you think that is? I mean, it's not the population of some small town. Nope. That is the number of cars the Sultan of Brunei supposedly has in his collection. 7,000 cars.
Okay, how about this number? $30 billion. That's his estimated personal net worth. But here's the crazy part. Almost everyone agrees that's a super conservative guess. The real number? It's probably way, way higher.
Okay, one last number, just to really set the stage here. 1,788. What's that? It's the number of rooms in his personal palace. Yeah, you heard that right. Not a resort, not some giant government building, his house.
So, now that your mind is sufficiently blown, let's try to wrap our heads around what this kind of lifestyle actually looks like. I mean, we're talking about a fortune that seems to have no bottom. We'll start with just the raw spectacle of his stuff.
And it's not just the number of cars, you know? The collection itself is valued at around $5 billion. It's like a museum of car history. Get this, he has 600 Rolls-Royces. Just Rolls-Royces. And the absolute crown jewel of the whole thing? A custom Rolls-Royce that's literally plated in 24-karat gold. It even holds a Guinness World Record. Of course it does. But hey, why would you only collect things that stay on the ground, right? The Sultan's insane garage is matched by his own private air fleet. His personal favorite, his go-to plane, is a Boeing 747 that's basically a flying palace. I'm not kidding. It's got crystal chandeliers, solid gold sinks. It's his kingdom, but in the sky.
And this is where you see what that kind of wealth means, like day to day. It's not just owning stuff, it's the spending. This is a guy who flies his favorite barber in from London for a haircut that cost 21 grand. For his 50th birthday party, he paid Michael Jackson to perform, sure, but first he built a whole new stadium just for the event. And then he gave all 60,000 guests solid gold medals as party favors. Just wow.
So the big question has to be, where does all this money come from? How does a country that's smaller than Delaware end up with this kind of mind-boggling fortune? Well, the answer is buried deep, deep underground.
Brunei is basically floating on a sea of oil and natural gas. I mean, the country's entire economy, we're talking 90% of it, is built on these massive reserves. And you better believe that every single barrel of oil, every bit of gas that gets sold, feeds directly into the Sultan's incredible wealth.
And if you want to see a physical symbol of all that oil money and power, look no further than his palace, the Istana Nur Iman. Now, to put this into perspective for you, you've heard of the Palace of Versailles in France, right? Huge, famous, historic. Well, the Sultan's house is 3 times bigger. It's one of the biggest homes on the entire planet.
This place is basically a small city. It cost $1.5 billion to build back in 1984. Imagine what that would cost today. Inside, you've got those 1,788 rooms we talked about, 257 bathrooms, a garage for 110 of his cars, and get this, air-conditioned stables for 200 of his horses. And that giant dome on top? Oh yeah, that's covered in 22-karat gold.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting, where the personal wealth and the political power just completely merge. See, the palace isn't just his home. It's also the Prime Minister's office. It's the headquarters for the entire government. Because he's not just the Sultan. He's also the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister, the Defense Minister, you name it. The entire country is run from inside his house.
So all of this has to make you wonder, right? With this one person having so much wealth and power, what's it actually like for the regular people living in Brunei? And that's where we get to the real contradiction at the heart of Brunei. It's like there's this unwritten deal, this unique social contract for everyone who lives there. It's a balance, you know? A trade-off between some pretty amazing benefits and some really heavy burdens. So on one side of the deal, the government provides for you, big time. We're talking free education, free healthcare, and get this, no income tax. Sounds pretty good, right? But the other side of that deal is that the state demands total loyalty and strict adherence to Sharia law. Right, and it's that second part of the deal, the Sharia law, that has really put Brunei and the Sultan himself in the international spotlight, and not always for good reasons. So back in 2019, the Sultan rolled out the full version of a penal code based on Sharia law, and this introduced some
Very severe punishments that caused a huge outcry around the world. Things like amputation for theft, and the most controversial part, stoning to death for adultery and homosexuality. It's a really jarring contrast to that image of the gold-plated jets and fancy hotels.
And that contrast is really the key to understanding the whole story. Because this super strict moral code that's enforced on the public, well, it hasn't always been followed by the royal family themselves, and that has led to some pretty major scandals over the years.
Probably the biggest scandal involved the Sultan's own brother, Prince Geoffrey. He was accused of basically misusing billions, with a B, of dollars from the state. Then you have these other stories, like a lawsuit from a former Miss USA who claimed she was basically held prisoner for parties, and of course those 2019 laws. They led to huge international protests and boycotts of the Sultan's fancy hotels, like the famous Beverly Hills Hotel.
So you might be asking, how does he get through all this controversy? Well, one of his biggest shields is a legal concept called sovereign immunity. Basically, it means a head of state can't be prosecuted. In that lawsuit from 1997, for example, a U.S. court just threw the case out, saying that because he's a head of state, you can't sue him. It's a pretty powerful get-out-of-jail-free card.
But of course, a whole country is more than just its leader, right? It's important to note that Brunei's full name actually means Abode of Peace. This is a nation with a 98% literacy rate, which is incredible. They were the first country in Asia to ban shark finning, and they have this amazing cultural history, like a whole historic village built on the water, known as the Venice of the East.
So that's what we're left with. This central, fascinating question. Is Brunei a kind of gilded cage? A place where people give up certain freedoms in exchange for a very comfortable, financially secure life under an absolute ruler? Or is it really what its name says it is, an abode of peace, a stable, wealthy kingdom that's just different? I think the real answer, just like the Sultan himself, is probably somewhere in the middle, just full of contradictions.